Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Global Outlook is sponsored by Maury's newsletter, Global Outlook. To get a complimentary copy, just log on to our website, theworldreport.org. Russia stands to make a lot of money off of lifting sanctions on Iran. Meanwhile, Russian troops joining combat in Syria. As civilized society watches this disastrous Iranian nuclear agreement, the supreme leader, the Ayatollah, says Israel will cease to exist in 25 years, God willing. So, what do you say about that? We're making a deal with the devil, and the devil chants death to America.
Yeah, and not only that, though, we have 4 prisoners being tortured in Iran, and that didn't even come up for discussion. And the Ayatollah Khameini has made a statement just in the last 48 hours that the only thing they're committing to is a short-term cease and desist as far as the nuclear development of a bomb is concerned. Nothing else is on the table.
So they're continuing to build intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Yes.
They're going to continue to fund Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and all these other people. They're going to continue to fight proxy wars all over the Middle East. We're going to give them $150 billion in American terms doesn't sound like a lot. But if you put that in terms of American dollars in our economy, it's like a couple trillion. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, you're not. As a matter of fact, this puts Iran back in the game as far as their economy is concerned. They're a brutal dictatorship, so the bulk of the people in Iran can't do anything anyway. But this way, it strengthens their hand as far as controlling the people. There's nothing now that anybody within Iran can do when the Ayatollah says, look what I was able to do. I fooled these people into making a deal. We're getting back $150 billion. We're allowed to ship our oil any place in the world. You know, they can ship their oil anywhere. We still have an embargo hanging over our head that Nixon got into in '74, and rightfully, because at that time he realized that we had to save whatever oil we were producing because the Saudis had ceased shipment of their oil into the United States. And as we talked many times on this show, you as a young kid at that time and I as a young businessman had trouble even getting enough gasoline to move our cars.
Right. And so, back then we were driving cars that got 6 miles to the gallon, the big 8-cylinder.
True, but we were in trouble, so he rightfully put an embargo on outward shipments, other than Canada, which didn't have any oil production at that time like they do now. So, you know what, by the way, you know what's happened, and I wrote a column about this, through Canadian sources. I learned that the Canadians have built 2 stealth pipelines under the border, connecting with their pipeline in Nebraska or someplace, I don't know where. It's come out of a couple publications, and they are shipping their oil sands directly now to the Gulf of Mexico refineries. Now, you say, well, my God, how are they able to get away with it? I think there's been so much damage done by shipments on tank cars, and people have gotten killed. There have been fires right in the middle of cities that I think even the Obama gang is not
looking the other way.
Looking the other way. Another thing, by the way, which is very interesting, as far as that oil embargo, we can ship all we want to Canada. And it's amazing how many new partnerships have been formed in the last 90, 120 days with Canadian partners. And guess where that oil is going? So don't sell the American businessman short. He's now realizing the only way he can work is under the table and circumvent what the man in Washington is doing, trying to destroy the American business, especially independent businesses.
And the Iranian nuclear agreement, they still have side deals that no one's even seen. I mean, this is ludicrous that anyone would sign on to a deal like this. The UN got a vote. The Iranian parliament got a vote. But the U.S. Congress can't even see what's in it. That shows you what a farce this is.
Your sense of consternation sometimes puzzles me. You know, the man in the White House is not interested in the welfare of the United States of America.
I do, but I'm appalled at the lack of opposition and the willingness to go along with this lawlessness by the Republican leadership.
You are absolutely right. We've come full circles on that subject because that's what I said at the beginning. I'm fed up with the leadership of the Republican Party who don't have the guts or the will or the understanding to know that they are being sidewinded.
You know, I said this before, and I think I've said this off the air, that there has to be some skeletons in the closet that the administration's got hanging over some of these guys. Because what they're doing and how they're presenting themselves is definitely not in concert with what the American people want. We are adamantly opposed to this, just like we were with Obamacare. And John Roberts went and rewrote that law so that it could pass. I got to think that he's got...
No question about... Well, absolutely. It may not even be that. It's the fact that they like the jobs they have. And the
lifestyle.
The lifestyle. Jeb Bush is collecting a lot of money, but if he became president, he'd have to pay off an awful lot of people. The one big advantage of Trump is the fact he doesn't have to pay off anybody. He may be considered kind of raucous and kind of crude in the way he gets his point across. But you know something? 32,000 people in Mobile, Alabama on a hot, humid night came out. I don't think there were ever 32,000 people in Mobile, Alabama coming out for anybody. And he's getting those kind of crowds because they feel this guy is saying what we feel and what we are afraid to say or even think.
And no one else has the guts to stand up and say anything even close to that. So it is refreshing, I have to admit, to see this happening. He's shaking things up, there's no question. And we're going to get to a lot more about him in our Political Insider. As far as the Iranian situation, when we're looking at this nuclear agreement, they're telling us that they're going to wipe Israel off the map in 25 years. When does Israel step in and have to take matters into their own hands like they did in Iraq and Syria in the past? Are we getting close to that point?
I don't think Israel can do anything as long as Obama's in the White House because he's given orders. If Israel planes are in the air trying to bomb Iran, shoot them down. Can you believe that? That's exactly what has happened. So they have an enemy in the White House. Why did Netanyahu come and speak to Congress? That's one of the good things John Boehner did. He invited him to speak, and he got a tremendous positive reaction. And Obama, of course, blew his top, and he's looking. He's the enemy of Israel, and they know it. I will say one thing: I'm ashamed that there still is a majority of the Jewish people in this country are supporting Obama and his gang.
You know, party first, I guess country second. It's sad to say.
That's not an excuse.
It really is, but...
it's an excuse given, but it's not an excuse.
But like you said, there was a lot of Jewish people that were in Germany at the time that Hitler was going through his reign of terror. And I guess they thought, if you just back away, he doesn't come after me, then I'm all right.
Yeah, there were 500,000 Jews in Germany out of a population of about the same as Germany has today, about 80 million. But they were in very powerful positions, and they were really respected by the broad scheme of the German people. But Hitler used the Jews as an excuse to get away with the kind of horrible things that he got away with, to the point where he tried to wipe out every Jew in Europe. But the point is, you're right. Even in my family, you would have thought they'd have gotten out of there in 1933. But my father said, I was an army officer in the Austrian army. I got an Iron Cross twice. We have connections at the top level of the military. My grandmother was part of the Stahlhelm, which was the military political group. But the military had long ago given their power away to Hitler as long as he got the stormtroopers off the streets.
And I don't know how much one person can do. You know, you're going to stand up and get swatted down. Why would you do that?
By the way, the only German Jews that got out of there in 33 and 34 were Zionists who really believed in the future of Israel in what then was Palestine. So they got out of there, and for the simple reason they knew they were not welcome. German Jews, like my family, considered themselves more Germanic than they did Jewish, and they figured they wouldn't be touched.
And I think that goes back to what a lot of Democrats that are Jews feel here in this country, that they're party first and religious and
I think part of
country
that.
second.
I think part of that also is the 1930s when the Jews were discriminated against. There were a lot of hotels. If you had a Jewish name or you looked Jewish, they wouldn't let you in. So they felt more in line with other minorities like the blacks. So that, but when people ask me, why is it, you know, most of my friends in business and industry are either Catholics, Protestants, evangelicals, and so on. They keep asking me that question. I said, they should realize the Spanish Civil War is over. I don't know whether they know what I'm talking about, but the Spanish Civil War was a fight between Franco, representing the fascist elements that were sweeping across Europe, and the legally constituted government that fought against them, were fighting for the maintenance of decency and democracy. Well, they were overrun because the bad guys were backed by Italy and Germany, and the Russians half-heartedly backed the good guys.
Russia is now in Syria, working with the Syrians. The Iranians are in there. We've talked about the biblical proportions.
Gog and Magog.
What do you make of what is starting to form up here with the big brother of the North and the big brother of the South?
Well, if you talk to my evangelical friends and companions, they will say that this is God's basic prophecy. I am not that much into prophetic belief systems. I'm hoping that that I've seen what the establishment of Israel itself was a miracle at the end of the war. You know, only some people will say, not openly, that Hitler was the godfather of the state of Israel, because if he hadn't murdered the Jews of Europe, there would have been no sympathy for...
And they would have no land, no
and
state.
there would never be no state of Israel.
Right.
So, I mean, you can twist these things any way you want to.
And we're also on the verge of the fourth blood moon, which is going to occur this month too, but we'll leave that lie.
Okay.